Hi, I'm Dave Hilowitz. So I've been selling my music on the internet for 10, 15 years, something like that. And over that time, I've amassed a bunch of tips, a bunch of strategies for how to get your music out there. So this is my list of tips. This is how I promote music. This video is sponsored by DistroKid, and we're going to be talking a little bit about their service too and how it fits into my overall strategy. Okay, let's get started. Tip 1, make a plan. Figure out what your goals are with this release and also how much work you're actually willing to put in. Releasing a record can go anywhere from basically just like putting it out there on a distribution service like DistroKid, or spending months contacting people, submitting to playlists, that sort of thing. So you need to kind of figure out how much you're really actually willing to put into this. Also, not everybody is trying to sell records. This is 2021. There's a limited amount of money that can actually be made by selling music. A lot of what you may be looking for is actually promotion and to build a fan base. As many of you know, I use DistroKid to distribute my music. They offer a ton of different places you can release your music. Some of those are places where you can sell your record for, a fixed price, and other places are streaming platforms. So you'll want to choose the services that actually fit your goals. Tip 2, set a release date far into the future. Once you've figured out what your goals are and where you want to release your record, your next order of business is to figure out when to release it. As a general rule of thumb, it's a good idea to set a release date as far into the future as you possibly can. This will give you a chance to contact bloggers, music journalists, people who put together playlists, that sort of thing. The more time you have to work with, the more chance you have of actually getting somebody to write about your record or add you to a playlist. At the same time, you want to make sure not to pick a release date that is during one of the dead zones, as I like to think of them. Releasing a record right before Christmas might sound like a brilliant move, but actually most people who work in the industry are on vacation or with their families or doing whatever right before Christmas. So you're not going to get anybody to write about your record on like December 13th or something like that. People are kind of winding down and they're kind of checking out. The same thing goes for August. Like half of Europe is on vacation in August, so you won't get as much traction from people in the industry. That being said, during both of those times, fans are, of course, still listening to music. If they go on vacation, they bring their phone and their Spotify with them. So you might still do okay. Tip 3, make sure your cover art looks professional. In many cases, the cover art is the first thing or the only thing that people will see, the only visual representation of your music. So it needs to look really pretty decent. If you have a friend or a partner with a good aesthetic sense, definitely show it to them before you commit to it. Obviously, you need somebody who's willing to give you honest feedback, and yeah, that can be hard to find. If you're having trouble getting honest feedback, a good trick is to show people 2 or 3 different designs and have them choose between them. Often that's an easier form of advice for people to give than just having to give you a flat no, which can be hard for people. Nobody wants to feel like a jerk. I never release anything without showing my partner the cover art first. And yeah, sometimes she definitely does send me back to the drawing board. Tip 4, make a landing page, make a video. Okay, so great. You've submitted your song to DistroKid, you've set a release date, you've got nice cover art. Your next overall step in the process will be to contact people about your release, of course. But you can't do that until you have assets to send to them. By assets, I don't just mean the cover art and the name of the song and maybe some MP3 files. It's a good idea to have things for people to share. The number one way that music gets popular, even before the internet, the number one way is via word of mouth. The form that word of mouth takes on the internet is, of course, sharing on social media. You, of course, have the possibility of sharing your music as much as you want on as many different social sites as you can, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But what you really want is people sharing your music to their friends. People are way more likely to trust the music recommendations of their friends over some rando on the internet. In this case, the rando is us. Of course, before they can share your music, they actually need something to share. DistroKid actually has a bunch of useful tools for generating shareable content. These can all be found in the goodies menu in the top right-hand corner. There's promo cards, which lets you generate shareable images about your release. Using this is really easy. Basically, all you do is choose a song and it generates everything for you. Then there's mini videos, which lets you generate these small shareable videos. Using this is also easy. Basically, same thing. You choose a song and it does everything for you. I would strongly recommend setting up some kind of a landing page. Depending on the way that you want to do your release, you either want to have the music playing ahead of time, or you want to withhold the music until the release date. DistroKid has something called a hyperfollow page that you can share before the release date or even after the release date. Before the release date, it doesn't play the music. After the release date, it does play like a little snippet of the music. And it also has like links to all of the different streaming services. So if somebody uses Spotify, they can link to your song on Spotify. If they use Apple Music, they can link there. Pretty helpful. If you've been out on Twitter and you follow artists, I guarantee you've seen a hyperfollow page. I see them being shared constantly. So yeah, that's one possibility. I would also strongly recommend making a video for your song. There are a bunch of different social networks, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, that are video-based, and you want to have something that you can share on those platforms. On Facebook, there's actually no way to share just an audio file. You have to share a video if you want it to be like a native share that has a play button. So definitely useful to have a video. When I say make a video, I don't mean like going out and shooting some complicated narrative video with you like lip syncing to your song under a highway overpass or something like that. It can be pretty ambient as long as it has some branding in it, like, you know, your artist name or your cover art. DistroKid actually has several tools for this, the best of which is a service called Visi, which generates like clean little shareable videos. Here, I'll show it to you. So yeah, there are a bunch of different templates. As you can see, each one incorporates the album art of their demo artist. Of course, once I choose my song, the resulting video will use my art instead. Okay, let's choose this template. And now all I do is choose a song, set a couple settings, and hit generate. And that's it. Now I wait a little while and they'll send me an email when it's ready. And lo and behold, it's made a little video for me that's super clean and really professional looking. Tip 5, make a press kit. Once you've got your images and videos ready to go, you might be ready to start the actual release process. If you're planning on contacting bloggers and music journalists, though, you probably have another step. You're going to want more assets. You're going to want pictures of you. If you're a band, you'll want band photos. If you're a solo artist, you want basically headshots. Your job at this point is to make the work of the music journalists as easy as possible. So when you're choosing images, try to picture like what an article about your band would look like, and choose images that would fit well at the top of an article like that. So you want things that are professional and that generally represent the aesthetic vision of the band. The same goes for blocks of text. It's a good idea to have an artist bio. The easy way to do this is to just say, you know, where the band formed and where you live now and the kind of music you make and that kind of stuff. But the interesting, good way to do it is to actually offer some anecdotes. If there's an origin story about the band, that's great. Basically anything that could be just lifted wholesale and put into an article, that's the kind of stuff you want in there. If you're really trying to go all out with the release kit, it's a good idea to write a few paragraphs about the specific song or record you're releasing too. Again, anecdotes are key. I used to do this process a ton, and I can't tell you how many times I saw stuff that I'd written in one of these electronics press kits show up almost verbatim in a blogger's post about the song. So also, yeah, you'll want to proofread your stuff really well. Otherwise, you're going to see that same typo appearing in all of the different blog posts that write about your song. So yeah, beware. Tip 6, don't expect to be discovered. This is by far the #1 mistake that I myself make as a human being who makes music and releases it on the internet. And it's the dream, isn't it? Like a world where all you have to do is write and record music, and the world will eventually stumble on it, and your fame will gradually increase over time, and you don't really have to do any promotional work. The truth is, after all these years, music still has a real discovery problem. Your perfect fans are out there, you know, people who have like a 94% match with your musical sensibilities, but they have no way to find you. The reasons for that are pretty obvious. First, there are way more musicians than there are people working in just about any other art form. I don't actually know if that's true. It feels true. Second, unlike with somebody stumbling on a YouTube video or a written article or something, there's no useful way to describe music. There's no combination of words that somebody can type in that will cause your music specifically to pop up, unless they happen to just like type in your name. Maybe they guessed your name. What all this means is you need to find people who might like your music and tell them about it. Obviously, there are 7 billion people on Earth. You can't email them all, although I get the feeling that some artists are trying. Your best bet is to contact people who can put your music in front of other people. Tip 7, know your genre. So in general, I think the idea of a genre is stupid. Why do you need a label from your music? At the same time, on the internet, if you say that you make rock music or EDM or something that's very, very broad, you're going to be putting yourself at a huge disadvantage because those are huge, huge pools of music. People who are trying to sell their music within the chiptune scene or the synthwave scene have a much better time of it because they participate in a genre. And that genre is pretty well prescribed, and they can share on forums that are dedicated to synthwave music, and no one is going to feel like they're like kind of sharing music that doesn't really belong there. There's a high likelihood that if you like one synthwave track, you will at least be sympathetic to hearing another one. So this is something to think about when you market your music. Is there any angle that can be exploited? Instead of rock, are you indie rock? Instead of indie rock, are you Americana? If you can find anything to hang your hat on, that's going to at least narrow the funnel a little bit so that you're not competing with the entire world. Participating in any kind of genre, or at least like knowing how your music could potentially be seen, will allow you to find, Facebook groups where you can share your music, Reddit groups, contact bloggers based on specific genres, that sort of thing. So definitely something to keep in mind. Tip 8, submit to playlists. Spotify playlists are a huge way that people learn about new music. I myself listen to playlists constantly. That's one of the major ways that I actually learn about music. And if I like a track that I hear on a playlist, I'll very, very often add that artist's record to my Spotify profile and then listen to it later. So personally, I can attest to this way of learning about new music. I've had my music featured on Spotify playlists a bunch of times, and I can say that it's where I would say 80 to 90% of my Spotify followers have come from. So definitely, probably the number one thing that you should be doing is trying to get your music onto playlists. There are native playlists that are part of the Spotify platform, and I actually made a video about how to submit to those, link below. Also, DistroKid users can take advantage of DistroKid's playlists, which have hundreds of thousands of listeners as well. You can do this using this link in the goodies menu here. It's a really easy process. Here's a pretty cool thing about DistroKid's playlist. You can go to this webpage and they will pop up 2 random songs that are from the submissions, and you can decide which of the 2 songs should be on the playlist. And I do that sometimes. It's really fun, actually. It's also an interesting perception thing because I really try to be aware of my own cognitive biases. It's totally natural to want to choose the louder song when you're presented with 2 songs, but like often the quieter song is one that I think is more deserving of being on the playlist. So definitely check that out. It's fun. Tip 9. Another group of people who can be very helpful to reach out to are, of course, bloggers. These are people who, just out of the sheer love of music, are maintaining these music publications. Running a music blog is a grueling, thankless task. They get sent thousands of songs a day. Make sure you only send your music to a blog that actually cares about the kind of music that you make. When I first got started promoting my band, I bought an email list of like 5,000 bloggers. And I went through all 5,000 and I checked out each blog and I figured out what genre each one of them was interested in, and I whittled it down to about 1,000. And I emailed all 1,000 that I had left with a message about the song I was releasing. And I had good tracking in place, so I could see how many people actually opened the email and listened to the song. And of the 1,000, 12 of them actually listened to the song. And of the 12, I think 6 of them actually wrote about it. So it was actually a pretty high hit to miss ratio in terms of the people who actually opened it. The next song I released, I just sent those 12 people emails. And again, a bunch of them wrote about the songs. Over time, my blogger list grew to about 50 people. Not quite the 5,000 that I had initially started with, but those 50 people actually genuinely cared about the band and liked the music and took time to write about it. If you've got some journalists who are really into the kind of music you're making, a good tactic can be to offer them an exclusive. This would basically mean that people who read their blog can listen to your music first before anyone else. The way to set that up is basically you would make like a SoundCloud page with a private link or something like that. In this way, you're offering them something of value that would actually drive visitors to their site. And on the day of the exclusive, you can promote their site and say, hey, everybody, check out my new song. It's featured on this blog. So there's a kind of nice symbiotic relationship that happens there where you're promoting their site, they're promoting your music, and everybody wins. If you do offer bloggers exclusives, make sure to ask them to get back to you so you can offer it to somebody else if they're not interested. By the way, lest you think that music journalism is irrelevant in 2021, here is a counterexample from my own life. Last night I was on my phone and I saw this tweet from Andrew Huang. I don't think I've ever had an album on repeat as much as Mood Valiant. And I had no idea what Mood Valiant was, but I was curious because I'm a fan of Andrew's and I watch his channel. So I immediately went and looked it up on Spotify and up it popped. And it turned out it was a record by Hiatus Kaiyote. And I thought that name kind of rings a bell. And I realized it was because I had received an email about it earlier in the day. I'm, of course, on Spitfire Audio's mailing list, and as part of that, I receive a bunch of emails about their magazine, Composer Magazine. They had done a feature about this artist, and I had actually not only seen this, but I actually clicked on it and read about a third of the article. And it doesn't matter that I didn't actually finish reading the article. What matters is that name stuck in my head. So now there were multiple touch points, multiple things that actually caused me to know who this artist was, and I immediately hit the play button. In other words, I not only clicked on this link earlier in the day, but I read a third of an article about this band, and I didn't actually go and listen to them. It wasn't until I saw Andrew's tweet later in the day that I actually bothered to listen to them. So that should give you some sense of how multiple different sources of information can kind of work together to convince somebody that they should listen to an artist. Tip 10, make an email list for your fans. The work of a music promoter is actually a lot like a sales rep. I know that's a gross thing to say. We all like to think of ourselves as artists, but the truth is that like a lot of the same rules apply. Email lists are crucially important. If you don't have a way of reaching your fans, the people who have already expressed an interest in your music, you're basically going to be starting from square one every time you release anything. In other words, you need to have an email list and you need to keep it warm, so to speak. In fact, you probably actually need two lists, one for music journalists and one for fans. You can collect fan email addresses in a bunch of ways. You can have a sign-up form on your website. The way that worked for me in the past was that I offered tracks in exchange for email addresses. So that's a tried and true tactic. When I say keeping a list warm, I mean, even if you're not releasing anything major, it's a good idea to send out a message every month or two just to remind people that you exist. But don't waste people's time, of course. Only email people when you have something new of value to offer them, a new blog post, a new video, that kind of thing. Tip 11, share your music everywhere. But remember to read the room. Once you've contacted all of your bloggers and playlisters and people like that, it's time for you to start sharing your music, your landing page, whatever you're going to be sharing out on social media. And, not much advice here. All the usual suspects, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok account. I just said that to sound current. One of the best places to share music is actually like Facebook groups and Reddit, places that have subcategories that are targeted towards specific kinds of music. As I said earlier, music that can be slotted into a pre-existing genre is often much easier to market because of that. I should say you have to be really careful if you're posting to a forum or a group like that, because a lot of places have strict no posting music policies. When I first started joining Facebook groups, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, I joined a film composition group, and they had this strict no posting your own music policy. You can, talk about the craft of writing music, that kind of thing, but you couldn't actually post links to your own stuff. The first post that I got right after joining the group was this guy who'd shared his music. And, I had this like very cheesy landscape photo, but I, clicked play anyway, and it was really beautiful. And I was like, oh, it's, not really what this group is for, but it's kind of nice. He's sharing his music and I actually liked it. The following day, I log onto Facebook, and lo and behold, the guy has done it again. This time I didn't click like. I have a lot of things on my plate and didn't really listen to it. Kind of miffed, actually. The third day, can you guess what happened? Of course, he posted again. And this time when I saw the cheesy landscape picture, instead of being like well disposed towards this guy who's writing like pretty nice music, I was kind of livid. I was just like, no, I could share my music. I'm choosing not to because that's against the rules. And nobody seems to be moderating it. And I instantly unsubscribed from the group. In just 3 posts, I went from a person who had kind of like grudging respect for the guy to, he's my mortal enemy. So don't do that. Of course, the joke's kind of on me because I still remember his name, and this is like 5 or 6 years later. So maybe that tactic does work. Anyway, most of the groups that you'll find on the internet that have those kinds of policies are pretty strictly moderated, and you will get banned instantaneously if you try that sort of thing. So watch out. Tip 12, watch the numbers, but not too much. At this point, it's also a good idea to set up a spreadsheet so you can kind of measure your success. If you're looking to have subscribers, you want to write down basically your subscriber count on every possible social media platform you can think of, your Facebook page, your Spotify profile, your Twitter account, whatever, all of the places that seem relevant to how you plan to build a fan base. You'll want to measure that over time to see if what you're doing is actually having any kind of effect. One purpose of doing this is you can see which views are coming from which source, and you can kind of compare social networks and see which ones are actually doing anything for you. You wouldn't upload your music to MySpace in 2021. And the same holds true for like way more popular social networks. If it's not actually getting you any listeners, there's no point in wasting your time posting to it. Compare your numbers from one release to the next also. That way you can see if you're actually getting better at doing music promotion. Don't compare your stats against other artists, however. It's easy to go on SoundCloud and see hundreds of thousands of plays next to some random track and get discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Some percentage of those plays are definitely fake. Fame begets fame. People are much more likely to listen to a track if it looks like other people are listening to it. People promoting artists know this, of course, and they purchase fake plays for these artists to make them seem like they're more popular than they are. You have no way of knowing what percentage of that large play count is real and fake. So focus on your own numbers. And finally, tip 13, advertising? Should you buy SoundCloud plays? Obviously, I'm going to say no. I think that's a little bit silly. It's a violation of the terms of service, not that anyone would really care. The main thing, though, that I would warn you against is scams. A lot of people prey on artists and people's desire to be famous, and you just will get a million different emails from people offering you a specific kind of promotion or to be put on some kind of playlist or any number of different things. A lot of them are too good to be true. There are just a tremendous number of people who have some kind of scheme that is going to take your money and ultimately not deliver what it promises. Needless to say, you can, of course, just buy advertising from like a traditional internet advertiser like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. You do see album releases that sometimes have actual legit advertising. Whether you choose to do that really depends on your budget and the decisions you made way back in tip number 1, make a plan. The reason to release music on the internet is to connect with people who appreciate your art, to build a fan base, and that's something that's completely achievable. The good news is that humans do still listen to and love music, and technology has made it way easier for people to access music that they actually love, and some of that music will be your music. You just need to help them find you. Okay, I think that's it. Hope this was helpful. If you decide to join DistroKid, which I highly recommend, they're a great distributor, it would be great if you could use my promo code on the screen below. It'll make it a little bit cheaper for you, and I'll get a little bit of a kickback, which helps fund the channel, so thanks for that. If you did enjoy this video, it'd also be great if you could hit like, and if you haven't done so already, now is a great time to subscribe. I've got a bunch of videos on the way, so see you soon.